What up? It's another episode of the High Definition Podcast. I'm Maurice,
I'm Therese.
and we're back for another episode. Um,
Mm.
yeah,
Mm-hmm.
this one's going to be interesting.
Very.
First, we are a platform that talks about cultural conversation from a biblical perspective. Um, you'll find a link tree in the description, whether you're listening or whether you're watching us on YouTube. And if you are, thank you. If you're a first-time listener, thank you for joining us. Returning listener, thank y'all for supporting us. You can agree with us or you can disagree with us. We welcome either one. The only thing we do not welcome or tolerate is any disrespect. That will give you a VIP invitation to the block party. We're just not gonna tolerate it. Sorry.
Get you with that matumbo.
Yeah. As you can see, probably from the promo or the title, at this point of recording, we haven't discussed the title, but either way, let's talk about this good old Kirk Franklin documentary.
Woo-hoo-hoo. Yep. Let's talk about it.
First of all, shout out to Kirk Franklin for giving us a window into his life and this part of his journey. For those who don't know his story, he has not really had a good relationship with his biological mother. I believe he was adopted by a distant relative, and she passed away some years ago. And she was the one that basically raised him. If you watch the documentary, it's on YouTube.
It's like 35 minutes long.
Yeah, I would highly recommend watching it. It's good.
If you see yourself in the documentary as far as Kirk Franklin's point of view,
Yeah,
if you haven't healed, or even if you have healed, it's gonna draw some emotions out of you. It will, especially if you've dealt with some of the stuff that you dealt with.
It definitely will.
It was touchy boy.
So within the documentary, I don't want to spoil it if you haven't seen it, but
Not bump that. We're gonna spoil it.
unfortunately, we're gonna have to.
We're gonna spoil it. Just a disclaimer: if you ain't watched it, don't listen to this episode. Push pause and go watch it. Then come back.
In fact, we'll link it down here
We'll put it
in the description. Go watch it, then come back and kind of hear our take on some of the stuff. But he actually finds out the man that several years ago he thought was his biological father.
Indeed, is not.
Going to find out he's not, and Kirk actually goes and finds out who his biological father is.
Which is wild because here's the backstory on that. So I believe it was a relative that had passed.
Mm-hmm.
Someone that he had not seen for at least 10 plus years, I think.
Yep.
And a conversation with someone who is close to Kurt in his family ensues with this gentleman named Rick. He mentioned that he and Kurt's mother Deborah were in a brief relationship.
Mm-hmm.
And that gets the wheels turning.
As black people do, the rumor mill starts going.
Of course. And then, of course, the conversation gets back to him. And I believe that Kirk had initiated for this gentleman to get a DNA test done, I believe. Is that right? I can't remember off the top of my head.
Yeah.
Well, DNA test, it did happen.
Yeah.
Come to find out, test came back basically 100% that this gentleman, Rick Hubbard, was his father.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. So just from an individual who has dealt with the whole absent father thing, like, my situation is different. I knew who my father was, and he just wasn't there. Kind of minted some of those areas before I got married. But we don't really talk like that still. Still, still working on that. Uh, but looking at this situation, man, when I say it really can pull some scabs, emotional scabs off.
Mm-hmm.
Boy, oh boy. And I think in his situation, I'm not gonna say it was worse because different strokes for different folks. Your emotions are your emotions. But man, like the simple fact that the guy he thought was his father, he was mad at all that time. Come to find out it's not his father.
Mm-hmm.
Stop right there. You gotta think of the emotional toll that puts on him.
Yep.
I've been mad at this man for however long, deflecting anger at this gentleman who I thought was my father because my mother said he was my father.
Yep.
That dynamic. That
can weigh a toll on you.
Yes. A plethora of emotions. Anger, sadness, grief. All of that. This man, he buried this guy.
Yep.
Tried to mend. I guess they mended the relationship. And then this guy's in the ground for some years and then come find out years later, he ain't your daddy.
And there was a scene in the documentary when Kirk's doctor, when he got the results, he's on the phone with his doctor, and she was like 99.999%.
Yeah.
And Kirk literally, he was like, "My mama lied to me again."
Mm-hmm.
Like,
I've been processing a lot.
Like when he said that, for me, I was like, bruh. And even within it, I think it mentioned that him and his mom haven't even talked for a number of years. And just imagine you moving on through your adult life, and you as a man, and there's going to always be a special relationship between a man and his mother.
Mm-hmm.
Even if your mother is absent or whatever, if it's not positive, there's still a part of a man that longs to have that connection with his mother. Or let me say, there's a part of a son that wants to have that connection with his mother. There's always been a special connection between a son and a mother. So in Kirk's situation, to have the dynamic that him and his mother has, that's already going to take an emotional toil and a different level of processing. But then when you come to find out that she told you that this particular individual was your father, then you find out that he wasn't, and now that man is already dead, and now you got to reopen
that emotional scar.
Yeah, you got to, in a sense, rip that Band-Aid off and tend to this wound again. And now you got to go meet another man. You don't know what his reactions might be.
Mm-hmm.
You don't know. You just, there's just so many questions that you have. I was like, bro.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And then now for me, also in the scene where he actually goes and meets Rick at his home. I think, if I'm not mistaken, if I remember correctly, he stayed in the neighborhood Kirk grew up in.
Literally right down the road from his studio.
Like they were in very close proximity.
His
entire
life.
Never knew. Like me as a son, I was trying to put myself in that predicament. Like, how it does it gonna make me feel? I'm this close. I've been this close to you my whole life and never had no clue. Now that's not my particular story, but I try to put myself in that situation. Anybody knows me, the way my brain goes, I be thinking all kind of stuff. But so I was trying to put myself in it, and I was like, even just me trying to think of how I would be, that it started taking a toll on me. Like, yo, this is crazy.
It creates levels of anxiety within you, like even to put yourself in that situation. Because I know, me, like I said before, like that longing that you have to be in relationship with someone and they're not there. Like, there's always this little child on the inside that longs, and it always brings me back to that episode of Fresh Prince of Bel-Air where Will, his dad, like, comes back into his life and then he leaves again, and everyone knows that scene. How come you don't want me? That emotion. I mean, it brings out those emotions.
Yeah, it's
like, dang, like, why you wasn't never there? This and that. But then you gotta think about it. He
didn't know.
He didn't know. But man, it's the mama for me, okay? The fact that one, she said this gentleman was his father. Then come to find out years later, after his death, he's not.
Yep.
Then there's this other gentleman who he finds out is his father through DNA. 2 DNA tests. He had one done, 99.9999%.
And she didn't believe him.
She didn't believe him. So they all came together, got another test done. Same test, same result.
And she still denied
it. That conversation he had with her, he basically said, look, if you're not going to give me this, the approval of this, I can't deal with you. That's what I took from that. And he hasn't talked to her since at the end of the video.
God, and like I said, that's a hard.
It is.
Because the dynamic that him and his mom already has.
Mm-hmm. It's already strained.
Yeah. And now for this to come to the light, and now that's even straining it even further.
Mm-hmm.
I was like,
and my thing is she embarrassed?
That's a possibility. Strong possibility.
I think that's a strong possibility. Like those things come to mind. It's like, are you embarrassed by this? If so, like, seek Jesus first and foremost. Seek Jesus.
Jesus, SUK, Jesus and the brown couch.
Jesus and the brown couch. Seek him. Seek both, because you have DNA evidence that proves that this man is 100% your son's father. I don't want to get into your past. Maybe she was a little loose. I don't know. I'm not gonna be paid to this. I'm not gonna. Let's not. But I'm just saying. No. But if the DNA evidence is there, what is it? What would it? My question is, what would it take for his mother to accept the results?
Because that level of denial, in the words of Madea, Dana don't lie.
She don't.
Dana don't lie.
Dana don't lie.
So
this man looked like the nose. Like, you look at the facial features, the nose is similar. The way they cross their legs, and throw his son in there too. They all cross their legs exactly the same.
Us black people. How do we find the funny in everything?
I got to. We've been through so much.
Because somebody on social media, they were like, y'all know that was a daddy. Look how they crossed the leg. Mm-hmm. Like, why are we? Okay, push pause. I'm sorry. We find the funny.
We have to. It's ingrained in us, man.
We gonna find the funny.
We gonna find it, boy. We got to. Life is hard, dog. Life is hard. You gotta find something to laugh about. You got to.
That's for real. But yeah, the mama was very. I ain't gonna tell you what my wife was saying there because she was getting hot.
I can see.
The one that did it for me was the aunt.
Oh, auntie?
I mean, we can't talk off the mic.
Yeah.
You kind of didn't have an issue.
I did. I like Auntie.
My issue with the aunt was, first of all, you're not gonna talk to me.
She tried to sun him up. Right?
Yeah, you. I've had to have several conversations with some women that's in my life, people that I've called friends. Try to let them know. You just cannot talk to a man any kind of way.
Nah, you can't.
There's one thing that all men have in common. All men want is respect.
Yeah.
If you don't give it to them, it's gonna be an issue.
I say that I kind of laughed at Auntie. You know, I got an aunt like that on my dad's side. So, and of course that was on his dad's. Well, it's his mom. It's his mom's sister. But so I got an aunt like that on my dad's side that it has that same demeanor. So for me, it was funny. It was like, yeah, I can see my aunt. I can see my aunt doing that. Yeah. So I guess, I mean, I'm not saying that's right, but to me, it was like I could laugh it off because that relationship with my aunt we're not close, but I take her as she is. Yeah. Because she used to be military. So I know her how she is. And I can kind of just be like, that's yeah.
And you know, Kirk kind of had that like, cause when he pulled up to the house, they opened the door and she literally said, "Right, I ain't gonna say the word on this episode." She said,
"Get your behind out the car."
Get out the car. And Kirk kind of had that. He kind of had that. Like you just did. Okay.
All right.
Because he needed her to sign the NDA. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Cause then he was like, "I'm gonna sit in here until Deborah gets here." Mm-hmm. I was like, "See that." Okay, so me and my wife was watching it, right? She said, "Oh, see, if that was you in this situation and I'm there, me and the aunt was gonna have some words. Cause you ain't gonna sit there and talk to my husband like that, right? You know what I'm saying?
Right. You know, yeah.
Like that aunt, for me, I was like, yeah. But I mean, I get where you can. People who have somebody in their life that's got that kind of demeanor.
It's like you know how to take it.
Yeah, you know how to take that.
Yeah.
Ain't none of my aunts like that. So I'm just not gonna you is not gonna talk to me like that. Period. All right.
Yeah. Yeah.
That was my whole. You just not gonna do that. Yeah. But and then the part where I forget the aunt's name, but when he had called her, and she was like,
"Is Sandra?"
Yeah. He just called her by her name, and then she was like, "Excuse me, who is this?"
He said, "Aunt Sandra."
He's like, "Okay, yeah." I'm like, I was sitting there the whole time. I'm thinking like, okay, do they have that type of relationship to? Because obviously on Kirk's end, he just said Sandra, but her is like she's trying to force him to
put the auntie on it.
Yeah, and I'm like, do y'all have that type of bond and relationship for him to? And if not,
you got to work on that.
Because
you have to be in it. I'm not saying this like by blood. That's your role,
right?
In my life, but also if our relationship isn't that tight, like it's gonna take a minute for me to get to that point. Even with like my biological father, I call him Brian. If I'm introducing him to anybody, it's my father. But I don't call him dad or anything like that. I call him Brian. Because one, our relationship isn't that tight. Yeah, that's who you sired me.
Yeah.
And that's your DNA, that's your role in my life, but you're not deserving of that title because our relationship isn't that.
Yeah.
I can call my stepdad, Joe. I call him daddy all day long. I call him Joe, but he told me you don't have to call me dad. But anytime I introduce that's my dad, you know. But the only reason I don't do that is because he doesn't like force me to do that.
Yeah.
But our relationship is like that where I can call him dad if I want to. But you gotta earn that. Like you can't just be absent from a person's life and expect me to just be like, oh, yo, what up, Dad?
Right.
Oh, what up, Father? You know what I'm saying, like that? No.
Because even, okay, I'm kind of the same situation as you are with your stepdad. So I never force our kids to, y'all got to call me dad. None of that. For the most part, they call by my name. There have been times where they have called me dad or daddy, but we have that relationship for, you know what I'm saying, when me and my wife started dating, my son was 2, daughter was 9 months. We have formed that relationship over the years, but
Right.
I have never forced them to, you know, call me that. Children, they don't ask to be brought into this world.
Ooh.
It's up to you as the parent. They're here. Once they get here, you have to form that relationship. You have to be there.
Yeah.
Because, what's the old saying? Children don't spell love with money. They spell love with time. You got to spend time with them. You got to, you know, make an effort to be there. That's kind of like with our godchildren. You know, it's Uncle Maurice, or it's they call my wife T. Thelma. You know what I'm saying? We have formed that relationship with them since they've been born. We try to make sure we go around. We try to make sure we see them. You know, you have to have that relationship. You have to form that relationship with children because they didn't ask to be here.
Right.
So for you to try to force yourself on them, nah.
No, you can't force titles.
And then if you haven't even been there,
right? Come on.
Like, I think Kirk was 53. I think
53.
And you trying to force that? Nah.
Right.
No.
Like Rick's not gonna expect him to call him dad.
Nope.
It's not. He'll probably address him to other folks as his dad, but he's not gonna be like dad. You know. That will probably never be the dynamic given the age.
Yep.
But I love the fact that Rick was willing to, one, sit and accept this.
Yep.
Because one, he didn't know. So none of this is his fault. None of this is his fault. I think everything falls on the mom.
From that dynamic. Yeah.
From that dynamic. Everything falls on the mom. Now, but here's the thing that we on High Def try to talk about is when we do things outside of the will of God, situations like this happen.
Yep.
When we're just, and this is for my single folks out there who are just, you know, you're promiscuous, you're out there just, you know, sleeping around. You know, these dynamics happen. And I know a lot of people in my personal life who they're not in this particular dynamic, but they're in a dynamic where they have kids outside of wedlock, and it's very difficult because they become single parents.
Yep.
9 times out of the 10, the child's gonna end up with the mother.
Yep.
And the father, you know, gets joint custody with the kid, visitation, all that stuff. You know, it just makes your life a mess. You know, that's something I never aimed to do, was to just like have kids outside of wedlock for one, but also have kids with someone that I didn't want to be with for the rest of my life. And parenting is not easy at all. But think about it, when you don't have a stable relationship or covenant with someone to help raise a child or children, it makes your life way more difficult. Because me and my wife we'll be what, 7 years this year? 6 years. And it's been a long time. Wow. Seems like forever. But I just want to put that out there. Kind of smooths it over. But yeah, time just seems just sit still with us. But in our relationship. But love you, babe. But but my thing is like, that's right. But even with that, it's maneuvering through parenthood is very tough. even in the dynamic that we're in, but it's doable because you have two people to cultivate.
Shameless plug. We have an episode called Maneuver Through Parenthood on season one.
We have two of those actually.
Season 1. Go back and check it out. Okay.
That's why I threw that in there. But yeah, I mean, but the thing about the dynamic outside when it's just you and you gotta share custody with a child, first off, the child sees that one of my parents isn't here all the time. So there's that.
Yep.
If you're in a relationship with if you have a child with someone that y'all don't really that mesh well together with, that creates a whole heap of mess right there because one parent could be just a little petty and they could seem to make your life as miserable as possible. You got to deal with that. You see what I'm saying? So like my admonishment is
seek to do it God's way.
Do it God's way. Do it God's way. Single folks, do it God's way. Please. It makes it easier, a little more manageable. You have structure.
Yep.
Outside of God's structure is dysfunction. So in God's will, there's security. Outside of his will, chaos. And a lot of people that I know who are single parents, you could tell the emotional strain that it puts on their lives. And it sucks, and that's where, now this is where the village comes into play. This is where, you give a little extra, you help here and there when they need it. But it's mainly supposed to be family dynamic. And then I say like what? 99% of the time it's your family dynamic. That 1% is outside family. That kind of gives a hand.
Yeah.
If needed. You know what I'm saying? It shouldn't be where you're kind of relying on your whole entire family to make up for where that person that you created this child with to make up that difference.
Right.
It's never supposed to be that way. I feel for Kirk, man. I feel for him because, he wants to have that great relationship with his mom. Now he's starting to have a relationship with this man that he just found out is his father.
Yep.
And I pray for him in that, with that dynamic of a relationship. I just pray that that little boy that is within him heals. Now, the Bible says, though my mother and father may forsake me, God is still with me.
Yep.
Yes, that is the thing that we are to hold on to. But let's look at it from the human standpoint. You're always going to want that relationship with your parents.
Always.
It's like, let's not be overly spiritual here. Let's bring it down a little bit, but understand from a human standpoint, you're always going to want that validation from your parents. That affirmation, you're always going to want that. But don't let that rule your life. Let God affirm you and validate you. First and foremost. Then, you won't spend your life trying to live vicariously through things. Awards. Like he said, I've won Grammys, multitude of awards, best-selling albums and all this and that. Probably the best-selling gospel artist of all time.
Yeah, I think he is.
You know what I'm saying? And you can tell, like, just by hearing him talk, he's lived vicariously through those accomplishments.
But there's still part of him that's broken.
Yeah.
And he even said it in the documentary, powerful statement. He was like, I've only known me to be broken. Now I got to learn how to live healed. And I was like, that's a powerful statement.
It is.
I think the thing that got me, so when he went to Rick's house, they talked. even when Rick saw the DNA, he broke down, and Kurt was, I think before Rick walked off, Kurt was like, I would like to hug you. When it got to that part, I ain't gonna lie, that kind of
had a little Denzel Glory.
Yeah, it tugged at the heartstring a little bit because I was like, my wife was like, "You all right?" I was like, "Bro, every son wants to have that relationship with his father.
Bump money, bump gifts, tangible, like those things. You want that emotional connection to your parents. Mm-hmm. Like you want that. Like I know parents, I know people who grew up in households with two parents and turned out terrible in life because their parents they were present but weren't present. Mm-hmm. Like they give them cars and clothes and whatever they wanted, but they never really had that emotional connection.
Yeah.
You know, that's the other dynamic. It's
so yeah, you can be present without being present. Mm-hmm. The only other part I think I wanted to really hit on was Kirk and his son.
Yes.
That, and now I ain't gonna give him a shout out on this. I don't agree with everything he says, but Larry Reed kind of followed this story along about a year or so ago. So I would go check out his platform. There's a situation between Kirk and his son. It got leaked. Mm-hmm. A phone call, and it got pretty intense.
Oh yeah,
it got pretty intense. So within this documentary, you're gonna find him and his son are gonna they're gonna start walking out their journey of them trying to better their relationship.
He hadn't talked to him in like 2 years prior to this.
Yeah. And there was a part in there where his son, I think his name is Carrion. Mm-hmm. Like I'm saying that, but I'm not saying it right. There was a part in there where he was like, "Man, I done sent you text messages and you haven't responded." Mm-hmm. And I was sitting here like, "Yo,
yeah,
like me as a son, do you know how that would make me feel? I'm reaching out to my dad and he's not responding to me."
Because that's a form of disrespect, and men like to be respected. It's like, I'm trying to reach out to you and possibly have a relationship with you.
Yep.
Some form of a relationship. And you just ignoring me, dog. Yeah. Like, you ghosting me?
Yeah.
Like, how do you think that made me feel? But then I thought about this whole situation and I was like, there's got to be a level of healing that has to take place in Kirk for that to happen. Like, there's got to be. Yeah. Like, and I hate, like, for me, just looking at my relationship with my sons, I know they're small, and I know my dynamic with I thank God for Roosevelt, Joe, my stepdad, because I actually had a semblance of a relationship with a father in my life. You know, he's not a stepdad, he's a dad that stepped up. I like that saying, by the way. But the simple fact that I didn't have that closeness with my biological father, it caused me to step back and go, I didn't get this from my dad. I want to make sure I have this with my boys. You know, experiences with them.
And you have a beautiful relationship with your son.
And man, like, you know, we bump heads because them boys got a variation of my demeanor. I'm a nice guy. Really am, but
it's to be expected.
It is to be expected. And my boys they're sweet, but boy, they can have a temper. And there's experiences I want to have with my sons that I never got to have with my dad. And I make sure that I'm not using what I didn't get from my dad. I'm not using that as how do I say this? How do I say this? I love my boys the way I'm supposed to love them, because that's how God's word tells me how I'm supposed to love my children. I'm supposed to be there for my children, provide for my children. I'm not using my lack with my dad to push me to be. I'm not using that as a. I'm not using that to have a relationship with my kids. You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm trying to figure out. There's a word that I'm missing. I've said it on past episodes. I just can't figure out what it is. But I'm not using that to go, oh yeah, since I didn't get that, I got to make sure I had this with my boys. Like, no, I'm doing everything I'm supposed to do with my boys.
Overcompensate.
That's it. I'm not trying to overcompensate, because I'm not trying to let my dad be the reason why I'm trying to be a better father. No, I'm being the best father that I can, because that's what God has called me to be. Right. You know, yeah, there are things that my father didn't give me. I make sure I give my boys that, but I'm not gonna sit here and be like, oh, my dad didn't give me this, I'm gonna make sure I give my boys this. Because when you do that, you start looking at the material things, and it gyps you of the actual relationship, the relational relationship part. But I hope that, I hope that every dynamic in Kirk's relationship gets mended.
Yeah.
The mama thing, that's going to take a lot of work.
A whole lot of work.
That's going to take a whole lot of work. But we see that, one, Rick is willing to have a relationship with him. Awesome. So I firmly believe that little boy in him is going to heal. Mm-hmm. His son, Carrion, I believe that since that little boy in Kurt's going to heal, that will help him mend his relationship with Carrion. I don't know if Carrion has kids or anything.
And that I don't know.
So, whenever he gets to that point, hopefully that relationship, but that on that journey to wholeness with their relationship, whenever he does have kids, he'll be able to give what he has gotten from his father and not repeat that cycle. Because one thing we see is cycles.
Yeah.
He didn't get it from his mom. He didn't get it from, he didn't have a father there. So in a sense, he starts to have a broken relationship with his children.
Yep. We do for sure with this particular son.
Yeah.
I don't know the dynamic for his kids that he has with his wife.
Yeah.
So I want to say that those relationships are pretty.
Probably pretty solid.
I could be wrong, but we know for sure, not because it's been made public. Because
also there's a saying, like, well, not a saying, but there's a dynamic here. Think about it. When he had Carrion, he was young.
Yep.
That's not his wife's. That's a totally different person. Okay. So now his kids that he has with his wife, Tammy, right? His wife Tammy. That's an older Kurt.
Yep. More mature.
A more mature Kurt. Some form of healed Kurt that is in a covenant with a woman who helps build him up.
Yep. And she probably also holds him accountable.
There you go. He don't got that. He don't got that with Carrion and his mom. So Carrion's that black sheep.
Yep.
On the outside looking in, and there's probably some jealousy there. It's like, oh, you can get that to them, but you can't get that to me.
Ishmael and Isaac.
Exactly. That's a perfect dynamic. That's a perfect dynamic.
Because you have one child with one who you're not in covenant with.
Yeah, and you have one with them.
One inside the covenant. And even Jewish history, I think it's in the book of Jasher, where it talks about how, and this is probably the reason why Sarah told Abraham to put him out, because they saw Ishmael was getting ready to do some harm to Isaac.
Yeah, he was going to try to kill him, wasn't he?
Yeah. So when you see, because of that broken relationships, that jealousy is probably there.
Yeah. That's a great way to put that. Yeah. That's a great way. You see the Bible always come up
Yo, the book of Genesis alone.
It's it's a soap opera.
That's better than a soap opera.
Better than a soap opera.
like bro, for real.
Like you can literally make a TV series.
You could.
That would span over 10 years.
You really could.
With just the books of
just the book of Genesis
alone.
So, yeah. I think with I go back to what I said earlier. Every son wants and desires to have the relationship with his father. I saw it really between Kirk and Carrie because at the end you can tell when they even before they embraced, when Kirk told him, "Look, I gotta tell you something." Mm-hmm. He showed him the DNA papers, and he was like, "I found my biological father, and I just want to let you know." And he started opening the door, and you can kind of see their wall and Carrion just start breaking down.
Because what did Carrion say? I've always wanted a relationship with my grandfather and my father.
Like, that's just something that's something that's just almost irreplaceable. Yes. A relationship between a man and his son and his father. And it started putting me, like, with me and my son now, I'm not his biological father, but I always try to, make sure I spend time with him. Hey, what's going on? You got this going on? We laugh, we trip. I try to teach him life lessons as he's getting older. But then I also started thinking about, for those, me and my wife, we're trying to conceive and have a child. If, the Lord bless us to have a son, like, Lord, how am I going about doing this? What is his demeanor going to be like? How am I going to do this? I'm like, boy, he ain't got here yet. You know what I'm saying? I'm always trying to. I'm like, you know what I'm saying? I'm trying to figure all this stuff out. I'm like, okay, God, if you trust me with that, you got to show me what's up. You got to show me how to do this. Mm-hmm. Show me how to do that. And
you have people around you that exemplify what you want to give you. Mm-hmm. Like, it's good to have people around you that exemplify that which you want to give to a child.
Not just people. It's funny you mention that because me and my wife, we were talking the other day. She was like, okay, let me be careful. That's kind of it's a private conversation. But she was basically saying, in the event that or when it does happen, she like, are you gonna be scared? You gonna be nervous?
What's a little of that comes with that?
I was like, yeah. I mean, there's always gonna be a little piece of nervousness. Mm-hmm. Every man I've talked to, mm-hmm. when they find out that it's a baby on the way, woo, they're like, bro, you gonna have all these thoughts going through. You're like, okay, am I making enough money? Is the house big enough? If this happens, like you start. It's a video I seen on Instagram. A guy had came in with his child in the carriage, and the wife had a pregnancy test on the counter, and like their baby wouldn't be like 6 or 7 months.
Yeah.
And he's like, "You pregnant again?" And the look on his face, I knew what the look was. And they were like, I went into the comments. They're like, they're like, he don't want it. They're like, no. All the men in the comments, they're like, no, that's not their look. That look was,
oh boy.
Okay, do we have enough?
Yes.
Am I making enough money?
Yes.
Is the house big enough?
Yes.
I got enough insurance?
Yes.
That's what his mind went to.
That's what it is. Because I tell you, when Candace hit me with the, I think I'm pregnant with Cameron, it was like, I was at work. I had to take a walk. I was like, I told my key associate that time, I said, hey, I'll be right back. She's like, what is that? I said, I just need to take a walk. And I started walking. I walked. And I was like, whew. And somebody was like, you all right? I was like, yeah, my wife just called me. She thinks she's pregnant. He was like, oh. I was like, yeah, I just had to take a walk, man. I just had to take a walk. You good? I'm good. I just had to take a walk. Because that's what it is. Is like, we're providers.
Yeah.
We want to make sure that our house is secured. Mm-hmm. So all those things are going to come through your mind. Like, oh, am I making enough?
Yeah.
You know, it's good to have those thoughts, but at the end of it, Lord, I know that you're gonna take care of us through this situation. As long as you're doing what you're supposed to be doing on this level, God's gonna take care of everything else on that level.
Well, what I was saying too, what I was telling her was, I was like, I'm be thinking about all that, but I said I'm glad that I have my support system.
Yes,
I said because as soon as you tell me that, I'm calling Therese, I'm calling Jamie, I'm calling Pop, I'm calling Kendall. I'm like, hey, bro, I need y'all.
I got you.
I need y'all to, okay, look.
What you need, man. What you need.
I said, cause this gonna be my first time going through walking, walking with her while she's pregnant. I like, I need y'all help.
I'm like, just
cause
just be there.
Cause
she gonna go through so much though.
Cause here's the thing too though, cause she was like, oh, you know you got good support. You got your mom. I said, yeah, but babe, my mom don't know how to be a father.
No, not at all.
I said,
not at all.
And I'm not saying this disrespectfully to any of you single mothers out there, but you are a woman. Yes. You don't know
your viewpoint.
You just don't know what it is to be a father. You don't know how to be a father. You know how to be a woman and a mother. So I said, when our day comes, I said, I need my boys. I said, I need the men in my life that's gonna be there. So I like, hey, bro, like, or call Pop. You know he in DC. Pop, look, hey, I need your help. I need to talk to you.
And women, your scope of fatherhood is from of receiving.
Yeah.
It's not from being.
Yeah.
So you only get a specific viewpoint.
Yep.
To be in that role is a completely different, viewpoint. Understand that.
It's a totally different vantage point. So, I started thinking about that.
Just take a walk. look, dog, look, because it's gonna be like
you might need to put that on a shirt. Just take a walk.
Just take a walk. Just take a walk because, like, I'm telling you, it's something that you're anticipating, but when it hits you, it's like, okay, breathe, don't lock your knees. That's why I say take a walk.
Yeah,
because you stand there too long, you're probably gonna faint. But yeah, man, it's just like you got people around you that can walk with you through that, uplift you in that, give you encouragement and words of affirmation and validate, stuff like that, man. Because it's. So the
Kirk Franklin doc, I gave it, if I had to go 1 to 5, I'm giving it a 5.
Definitely.
I definitely recommend y'all go and watch it. And have some conversations.
I had
that laugh. Let's be those.
I give it a 5, but part of it. But this is he's a showman as well. So some of it seemed kind of theatrical a little bit to me, but that doesn't undermine the whole thing at all.
It's also good marketing because he got an album coming out
in
in October.
Go. So there you go. There you go.
There's always a brand name marketing side of it.
Always, and that's what it is. But that doesn't take away from the documentary and the content of it.
Yeah,
it's like, but man, I hope that I know just from looking at Facebook, a lot of people,
a whole lot of different reactions.
Yeah, and like if you've been through it, I pray for you. I pray that you. I saw a reaction that someone said that I don't even want to seek out and try to find out who my father is.
Wow.
And it kind of broke my heart a little bit to hear that, because I think there's a bit of fear there because of rejection. I think that there are people who are afraid of being rejected by someone who is supposed to have that big of a role in their life. And I say, this is where you gotta know God for yourself. And you really have to lean into the Holy Spirit is that I say to anyone who is in that situation, seek him out. Seek her out, him out, mother or father, and give them the opportunity to say yes or no. Mm-hmm. Then, from that point, you know where they stand.
And you know how to move on.
Yeah.
I agree with that.
But also, in that situation, when you reach out, even if they say no, there may come a time, you may plant something in their heart by just seeking them out, that down the line, they may reach back out to you years later and say, hey, I know I said no, and I've done a lot of soul searching, and I know that I hurt you, but I want to make amends. Now, granted, the scary thing about that is now I gotta peel that proverbial Band-Aid back off. And
are you now in a more mature place to be able to give that forgiveness if you haven't already?
Because when you've been forgiven,
you gotta forgive.
You gotta forgive. And I'm not saying it's an overnight process. It's a journey. But it's beautiful. It's beautiful. Because I know I had to go through that. Like, me and my dad went to breakfast the day of my wedding. And we talked. Came to the wedding and everything. We talk on and off. I didn't really talk to him in a minute. But, there's a healing that took place. But I also understand that's a process. Yeah. And I can hit him up right now. He may pick up, he may not. Oh, it is what it is.
Yeah.
I'm not going to stick on the fact that he didn't pick up. It's just that, all right, cool.
Yep.
Back to what's in front of me, But give him an opportunity to say yes or no, and then let healing ensue.
Yeah.
Because I think that when you just write it all the way off, you can't fully heal.
Nah, and I would encourage those of you do have a good relationship with your father. Keep it up.
Yeah.
Reach out to him, talk to him. Yeah. So, y'all let us know what y'all think about what we think. This is another episode of High Definition Podcast. I'm Maurice.
I'm Therese.
Y'all remember to live life
from the highest definition.
And we will catch y'all next episode.